Hey, y'all. Welcome to the College Football DFS live stream. I think we are on week 5 now, which is crazy, man. We're almost halfway through the season. It always goes too fast, but man, this is the best part of the season because we got some data stacked up. We're starting to get into conference play where teams are more even, so we can really break down some of these matchups in ways that we're not going to see crazy variance. And so, super excited to have you guys. My name is Josh Chevalier. You can find me at CFF Guys, and I have my boy Darren with us. Darren, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I had to show my data shirt. I'm wearing my data shirt today for. I'm double dipping today. I'm doing the college and I'm doing the cashing the NFL show later today. So it's a lot of data for sure. Yep,
awesome.
I'm JoJo. Sorry, Boo Boo JoJo on Twitter. I'm here gonna kind of like lead the ship and let the master, the man in black today. I like it. The Dark Knight.
All black today, my friend.
Take it there and. Got to apologize. The wide receiver streak is over. Had 3-4 weeks of good run, and my boy Dawson let me down. He had a chance for a touchdown at the very end of the game, but he had his hands on it. But I've got another wide receiver play today who I like, and hopefully he can work out better than Mr. Dawson did last week. But I kind of like Dawson this week because Weaver's questionable. But we'll get to that game in a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, let's hop in here, man. I'll let you drive the shit.
Cool. All right. Clemson, Syracuse. Clemson's favored by 6.5. So we got over under 52. Shipley is super popular. He over exceeded what I thought he would do last week. Said on the stream, I've always liked him. Love watching him play. He's super talented. He didn't really pop the value last week, but he's I think he comes to play. He's such a fun player to watch, and he's talented. I think he'll be a good NFL prospect down the line. Schrader actually looks pretty good. Now, Allen's super chalky at running back for Syracuse. Now, Jones is out, wide receiver for Syracuse, so it does open Alford and Hatcher up a little bit more targets, and they're not showing that much popularity, which is kind of weird, especially when you're going to get more volume with the target hog as much as Jones is. So I don't mind a Schrader, Alford, or Hatcher. I'm not sure if you have a preference on either one. I like both. And then you could do a Schrader, Alford, Hatcher, and come back with Shipley and or Collins, who's actually pretty popular receiver for Clemson. So that's probably the best stack. But Clemson's pretty good. They got a really good pass rush. But it's got a decent total at 52. Syracuse is I'm assuming he'll be throwing to stay in the game. So that's where I'm at. Klubnik, okay, that's where I'm at. Let you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the Clemson side of things, Shipley is viable here. I don't know if this is the best of matchups, but he's 5,900, right? So he falls in a good receiving last week, had 5 catches for 85 yards against Florida State. That was really fun to watch him go off. He's a true freshman, and he plays all slot. So he replaced Antonio Williams, who's been injured. Looks like Antonio Williams is listed as day-to-day, but he was in a walking boot last week, so I doubt he comes back this week. So I think we can fire up Tyler Brown again and see what he can do. Syracuse has been a bit susceptible to other wide receivers, particularly some slots this year, really inside and outside, but slots have had success against them. So Tyler Brown at 4.8K is a cheaper option as we try to stack some higher price players that we'll talk about later. But yeah, on the other side, Schrader, I think, is viable. I worry about Schrader a little bit. I think he, in the past, has been matchup dependent. He's gone off against weaker competition and struggled against better teams. Clemson would qualify as a better team that he'll be facing this year. So this will be an ultimate test. So I'm probably gonna be staying away from him mainly and seeing if this is a new Schrader. because 7.4K is a lot to have to get to. But then we also got LaQuint Allen as well, like you talked about. I really like LaQuint this week. I think he's a guy that does it on the ground, through the air. He does a little bit of everything. And at 5.7K, he's a good option if you want to fade one of the super chalky running backs this week. Then LaQuint Allen, he'll be kind of highly owned. Maybe a quarter of the slate will have him, but there's a couple running backs here that are just going to be super highly owned. That you're gonna have to decide whether you want to go with them or not. So that's what I got for this game.
All right, cool. All right. Let's move on to which 2 weeks ago would have been the game of the week, but it's still going to be fun to watch either way. Even when Colorado's getting their butt kicked, it's still fun to watch either way. So we got USC against Colorado. We got a monster total of over 73. USC is favored by 22. Caleb Williams has a monstrous price tag, and for good reason. Man, it's like I got my receiver in this game. I'll talk in a second. But obviously on the other side, you got Sanders, Edwards, Weaver. I don't know if you have any updates on the latest on Weaver. So I know he's been hurt. He left the game last week. So if he's out, obviously Hunter's out, obviously, as we know. So Horn would be the number one. And then you got Harrison and my boy Dawson from last week. I'd go right back to him again, especially if Weaver's out. It's a fast game, going to have to be throwing. Their offensive line, at least they're at home, so that helps a little bit. I'm not sure if they're going to get completely blown out like they did last week. And you got the usual receivers for USC, but my favorite one and my wide receiver call this week is Zachariah Branch. We haven't really talked about him much the last couple of weeks. You talk about a fast game, fast pace, monster score, fastest player in the nation, probably in all of football. I'm not sure what his metrics are compared to Tyreek Hill and some of those boys, but I just love him this week. His upside is just massive. Returning punts, passes. He's running some end arounds, and he's not showing much ownership at all too. So that's a way to get a little bit different because Caleb Williams is super chalky. Take it away. I think Josh is frozen. Yeah, Josh is frozen.
Yeah, so on my side of things, sorry, I missed the last part of what you said after Zachariah Branch. So I may repeat a few of your things. Zachariah Branch is a guy that I actually like a lot this week as well. I think he's a guy that can absolutely go off in this game. I don't have a lot of, he's like fourth or fifth in snaps. There's a lot of things. Dan Brown over here. Josh looking so serious while frozen. Yeah, that's my natural temperament. Just kidding. But no, I think Zachariah Branch could absolutely go off this week. That'd be a lot of fun. I do think Brendan Rice is absolutely in play too. At his price tag, he's only 300 more. And you talk about the last 2 weeks when our boy Travis Hunter got hurt. Torrey Hunter went off as an outside wide receiver there at Colorado State. And then Troy Franklin this last week just had his way against, the DBs over there. So I think Brendan Rice could definitely be in play as well. And yeah, I think both those guys are totally viable. It's hard, right? With USC, like a different wide receivers going off every week. We've talked about this in the past. It's just hard to find the guy that's going to go off for a Lincoln Riley offense. But I think both of those are guys that you want to have exposure to, Zachariah Branch and Brendan Rice. Caleb Williams, I just think he's got to be in your lineup. There's pretty good chance he goes off for 40 in this game, particularly if Colorado can do anything on the other side. So, it's going to be hard to fade him. On the Colorado side of things, if Xavier Weaver plays, then I do think he's viable here. If he doesn't play, I think you can go down to Jimmy Horn. the question really is going to be like, how do you get the salary to go after a guy like that? To be honest, this is a tough slate because these guys are priced so high. But then there's also other guys that we'll talk about later that you just have to have in your lineup. And so it's a 74, 73 total. And so you got to have exposure to it. But then where does that exposure come from? That, that's really
Exactly.
tough. And I think for both of us to be on the same page on Zachariah Branch is interesting. I think it's something to be maybe taken into consideration, but I also think Brendan Rice is another one. We've seen him, he's catching these long bombs pretty consistently right now the last couple of weeks from Caleb. So we'll see. But those are the guys I like the most in this one. And then Xavier Weaver on the side. I also think Dylan Edwards, they're playing from behind. Like this could be a game where he's a little bit more viable. We haven't really seen him pop after the first week, but this could be a week where he does something.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a fun one. Early, pretty quickly after that. If you either had a piece or you faded some of it too. So
yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on. We got Texas A&M against Arkansas, 55 total, and Texas A&M are favored by 7. Texas A&M, they're not very good against the pass, so I don't mind Armstrong at receiver for Arkansas. KJ Jeff, don't mind him at all. Dominion looks like he's going to get a little bit more volume. The other back being out. Don't have much in this game apart from I kind of like the Arkansas side, even though they're the dog. Dominion and Armstrong are actually interest me the most. All right, I'll let you take it away with the rest.
Yeah. Father Well actually had a question on ownership. So he was talking about, is the ownership on this game going to be pretty high on the Colorado USC game? And it doesn't look like ownership is going to be super high for the reasons that we talked about, that there's just other players that people are going to go after. But so Brendan Rice and Zachariah Branch, at least according to the projections that I've seen, like they're not projected on a very high ownership. So yeah, it could be an edge in this game to have at least one of those guys. Yeah. Arkansas and A&M, man, Evan Stewart just did not do much last week. And, Connor Wegman goes out and Max Johnson comes in, and, I just don't know what to do with that. And so he's a guy I want to have exposure to, but I'm going to probably end up fading, even though LSU has just been, LSU just went off on Arkansas. And so there's some precedent for wide receivers having some success against this Arkansas defense. But I don't know. It's just hard figuring out right now if Max Johnson and Evan Stewart are going to have the same connection that Wegman and him did. On the other side, man, I think KJ Jefferson should always be in play. We saw TVD Tyler Van Dyke go off on this defense, 374 yards, 5 touchdowns. I don't know if our boy KJ is going to get there, if he's going to go that high, but he's certainly viable in this game. And he's a guy that can get some rushing touchdowns as well. Dan Brown's asking about Luke Hasz, and yeah, man, Luke looks unbelievable. And he's a guy that I wrote up today in my article. He's 5K, and I think he's absolutely in play. He is basically the wide receiver too at this point, even though he's playing tight end as a true freshman. But he's a very smart player. He's a guy that's explosive, even though he's playing tight end. I think he's totally viable in this game at 5K. We're going to have to find some cheaper options, and he could be that cheaper option for us. The other guy I like here is Andrew Armstrong at 6.2K. He's just been Mr. Steady, Mr. Consistent, and he could come back and do it as well. Lastly, Rocket Sanders appears to be back this week at 5.6K. He's a guy that we should consider. I don't know, first week back from injury. I already had question marks on him, but 5.6K, like, I don't know if we're going to get another shot at Rocket at that price. But again, who are you fading? You're either fading Blake Watson or Ashton Genty, and enough question marks for me around Rocket Sanders that I don't know if I'm going to have a ton of exposure to him, to be honest.
I agree. All right, let's move on to kind of a lower scoring affair. These teams. Oh, it's my daughter's alumni, the Gators against Kentucky. We got a 46.5 total, and Kentucky is favored by 2.5. I don't have much interest in this game at all, actually. I just think there's just too many other games that I prefer. I don't have much in this game at all. I'm going to let you take if you like any pieces from this game at all.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Trevor Etienne had more consistency because he's just so good, but we just don't know when he's going to go off. But the player on the Florida side, I think, to consider is Eugene Wilson III. I think it was the Tennessee game that he got hurt in, but before he got hurt, he got 6 catches for 44 yards in like the first quarter. I mean, they were peppering him with targets. And so he's back. If he starts this week, I think that's something for us to consider at 4.7K. I mean, Kentucky's a tough defense, but Eugene Wilson is absolutely electric. He's similar in skill set to Zachariah Branch. He's kind of Zachariah Branch light, if you will. So I think he's a guy that if we know he's healthy and he's playing, they want to feature him when he's back. So he's interesting to me as a punt play, a guy that not many people are going to be on. So in GPPs, you could probably go after him. On the Kentucky side of things, I don't like this matchup very much for Kentucky. Devin Leary's let me down too much over the last few weeks to trust. And they're just spreading the ball around a ton among those Kentucky receivers. So you just can't predict who's going to go off.
We are in agreement. Pass on that game. All right, next game, maybe another pass. Penn State Northwestern got a 46.5 total, and Penn State's favored by 26.5. Wish I knew which running back to pick out of Allen and Singleton, because I wouldn't mind playing one of those guys to maybe get a little bit different. With all the other chalky running backs, Lambert Smith is okay, receiver, but 26 total. Got nobody on Northwestern side. 26.5 total. I'm not going to have anything from this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you could try to go after Keel Case. I mentioned Dante Cephas in the chat, and then coaching staff liking him more. But you're really throwing some dart throws out there if you're going to put it on this game. It's going to be tough. Katron Allen could go off at 7,300, but again, we're coming back to this idea of like you got to fade somebody. So he's a guy I would have some exposure to in GPPs. I mean, he had 20 carries last week against Iowa. And if they're going to give him that type of volume, then he's a guy that we need to consider, particularly against a Northwestern team that's given up, 27.2 points to opposing running backs. But it's risky, and so that's why he's only GPP viable for me. But that's all I got from this game.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Going to a little bit better game. We got Arizona State at Cal. I like Conover. Cal's favored by 12. I don't like Conover. He's really, really cheap. Don't want anything to do with the quarterback for Cal. Finley, nope. Ott's not bad at running back. A little bit different. And my favorite receiver for Cal would be Hunter. And that's pretty much it. So Conover, I'm not sure if you can play him naked or not. I'll let you comment on that because of the price. Don't really need to do that much, being that cheap. But you could do like a mini stack like Conover and Hunter. Hunter's got a pretty good price too. So, and Ott is okay. I think he's a way to get a little bit different. He's probably talented kid. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this game.
Yeah. So I think we need to figure out if Conover's starting. The last that I read, Trenton Bourgeois might be the starter for this game. He's coming back from injury. He's only at 4.8K, so he's not that expensive either. But either one of those guys is viable to throw into the super flex with Caleb Williams. They're not my favorite cheap option at QB this week, but they are a option if you want to try to go after that. And then on the other side, yeah, I mean, I think if you want like Jaden Ott, he is 8.1K, but he is a type that could have a monster game, right? He's a type that can get you 40 points and totally hit value here. And he would be something different. So in GPPs, he's a type of guy that we should try to target. And then, yeah, like you said, Jeremiah Hunter, he's gonna be a popular guy in this slate. I mean, this is an Arizona State defense that's one of the worst against opposing wide receivers. And so Jeremiah Hunter is absolutely viable this week. But so yeah, you can go after him. He is going to be, one of the higher owned wide receivers on this slate. So it's not like we're not like, coming up with something original here. We're talking about Jeremiah Hunter. So just know if you play, I think Jeremiah Hunter personally is a guy that you want exposure to in cash lineups, right? But if we're talking about a GPP, like maybe you go off of a Jeremiah Hunter and you go on to a Brendan Rice or to a Zachariah Branch we've been talking about, who would differentiate you a little bit more in those type of lineups than a Jeremiah Hunter, and probably, quite frankly, have higher ceilings than Hunter, because this isn't an offense that's going to score a lot of points. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be this week. They're splitting time between Sam Jackson, who's more of a runner, and then Ben Finley, who just isn't a very good quarterback. He's bounced around quite a bit, throughout his time in college. So those are the type of things that we have to factor in here. I don't see this game being a shootout. So you just have a limited ceiling. Sorry, that was a lot of words on Jeremiah Hunter in California, but I feel like it's worth talking about.
All right, we'll move on to a better game. I like this game quite a bit, actually. It's Kansas and Texas. But a 63 total, Texas favorite by 17. My favorite piece from this game on Kansas side is going to be Neal. Neal disappointed last week, but with them being dogs, I can see pass catch city for Neal. And how people, recent bias, Devin Neal let him down last week. He's still too cheap at 6,000 for the bell cow type role. I would like him a lot this week. He's one of my favorite running backs. And on the Texas side, usual suspects. Yours, Brooks is pretty chalky. Worthy, I like Sanders quite a bit, and then Mitchell. I mean, how can you not like any of those guys? So you could definitely do a Ewers, Worthy, or Sanders, Mitchell. Come back with Neal. Grimm and Arnold aren't bad either. The prices aren't that bad. That bad overall. But my favorite play on the Kansas side is definitely Neal, and just the ones I talked about on the Texas side.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Which Kansas team are we going to see? Are we going to see the one that came in 2 years ago and just lit up Texas? I don't know if you remember that game. It was like 6 turnovers on the Texas side. Hudson Card is very memorable for all the wrong reasons. But Kansas State came in. I think they beat them 53-48. I don't remember, 51-45, something in that range, right? It was a shootout. Then last year, Texas went up to Kansas and just stomped them. And that's a game that Brooks had 100 yards and a touchdown or 2 on like 10 carries or something. So I like Brooks in this game. I think Brooks is a guy that's really hot right now. You want the running back that Sark is leaning on in any game, really. And so at 6,200, he's going to have a decent ownership percentage this week. But he's a guy that he almost hit 22 miles per hour this last week on his 45-yard touchdown run. I mean, this is a kid that's really coming into his own, gaining confidence. I like him a lot. I also like with the Ewers. Jatavian Sanders stack is super interesting. Fun fact, I don't know if you knew this, Darren. I didn't know this before I was researching it today. Sanders is leading the Texas team in receiving yards this year. He's averaging 22 yards a catch. So he's got 12 catches for like 260 yards, which is so unusual for a tight end, right?
Yeah,
and he's number 2 in targets and receptions. And so this is a kid at 4.7K. Like we should be considering, because he could have a few catches and really go off in this game. And at 4.7K, he allows us to get down, to be able to get up on some of these other guys that we want. And so as I was researching this is a guy that really started to stick out to me, Jatavian Sanders. On the other side, yeah, Devin Neal, he's viable for sure. I mean, he's had a great year. He can go off on any game on any team. I'm not really sure what happened last week. I didn't watch the game, but it was unusual for him to get stopped in the way that he did. And then in theory, Jalen Daniels is a guy. He didn't play last year against Texas. Or if he did, he was super limited coming back from that shoulder injury. And so, but again, a couple years ago, he lit Texas up. So it's a well-coached team, and I think we should also always be considering both Neal and Daniels in any of our lineups.
Do you have a preference between Grimm and Arnold at receiver for Kansas?
I don't even think I would touch. Like, I don't know if that's where. I don't think Daniels is gonna like pop off on Texas through the air. Okay. So I would just stay away from them.
No, that's fine. Yeah, like I said, my favorite play on in the game is Neal. But like I said, I didn't. People or you were meant suggesting Daniels, but you could actually run Daniels naked too. So you could do a mini stack with Daniels. You could do Daniels Sanders, little mini stack too. I don't mind that at all. But yeah, Sanders. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in my main lineup, so I like him quite a bit.
Yep.
All right, next game. Pretty ugly actually. It's Georgia Auburn. 47 total. Georgia's favored by 14.5. Mr. Brock Bowers, is he priced correctly? I don't know. Every week it's a different story, but they priced it back up. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like anything on Auburn at all. I don't like this game in any way, shape, or form. I don't like anyone. I wish I could play Georgia's defense if they had defense in college. That's the only play I would play if I was playing this game. I will not be using anybody in this game unless you like somebody on your side.
Nah, we can move on. I totally agree with you.
Perfect. We've been in agreement the last couple of weeks. Kind of scary. Hey, did you write up Branch in your article? I didn't read it yet.
I didn't write it. I put them in my. I didn't have the data to back up my hunch, and so therefore I'm.
What you had a hunch? You had a hunch too with Branch?
Oh yeah. Oh no,
Let's go.
I'm totally on the Branch bandwagon this week. I just couldn't write him up because I'm like, what am I gonna say?
So cool. So if he fails, it can kind of be like your fault. Like, so I don't. Then my streak is still at 3. It's still pretty good. All right. Anyway. Okay. Totally. Let's go to one of the chalkiest people of all time game. We got Indiana, Maryland. We have Maryland favored by 14. We have an over-under of 50. Lucas at running back. Just plug and play. He's too cheap. Price is ridiculous. Guy's a stud. I don't care that they're underdogs. I've always liked Camper, but I'm not going to use him. I'd like watching him as a player, but I'm probably not going to use him. Not using Jackson, the quarterback for Indiana. That's for damn sure. Tagovailoa is interesting. Hembry, always capable of just a monster, multiple touchdown game for Maryland side. But it's the Lucas show here. It's plug and play. I'm not going to overthink it. Price is stupid, and he's just getting so much volume.
Yeah, one of the things I wrote up in my article, like last week, I was big on Lucas, and then he flopped. And Walt Bell came out, and he had to explain himself to the media. I'm like, why didn't you use him in the passing game at all? And he said, well, Henderson was out, so we had to use him more in the run game. But then Tom Allen came out and goes, hey, Lucas is going to be a focal part of our offense moving forward, a focal point. And like we're going to use him like we did in the Louisville game, which is the one where he had 10 catches for like 90 yards. And so I think you're totally right on Lucas, and you have coaches going, "Nah, we're gonna force feed this kid our best player." On the last play of the Akron game, like or in overtime, Lucas was wide open in the side of the end zone, and Taven Jackson just missed him. There's actually a video of like our boy Lucas going like this, like, "What are you doing?" So, whatever. Like this is that team's best player, and the coaches, I don't know if we can trust Watt Bell, but we can trust Tom Allen to go, "My job is on the line. We got to feed this kid." So I'm there with you. Roman Hemby on the other side is a guy. I mean, this is a defense that's ranked 103rd in Indiana against opposing running backs, 29.5 a game. And so Hemby's a guy that can get there. He hasn't had quite the usage as he did early on in the season, but Lorenzo Lingard, a washout from both your daughter's school, Florida, and my school that I love, Miami, is over at Akron, and he had a big game against Indiana, and so it's viable here that Hemby could go off. He would be a GPP play if you want to go super deep, have something different, differentiate yourself, because he's not going to be very highly owned this week. So that's all I got on these games.
All right. We got a yucky game next. We have Michigan, Nebraska. We have a whopping total of 40 points, and the Michigan's favored by 17. Wilson, still a good price. He didn't do as much as we would hope last week. Price is still good. Yep. The total sucks. I haven't looked at the schedule yet. I'm not sure when Michigan actually face somebody that we're going to be excited to face. Haven't looked at the schedule yet. I'm not sure who that's going to be, and I can't wait to use Quorum for that case. Nothing on the Nebraska side. A total of 40 points. Quorum, I guess, he can still a guy who can score 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first half and get there. But I'm not going to have anything to do with this game with a 40 total.
Yeah, I think if you want to differentiate yourself, you hit it, highlighting Roman Wilson is key, because I could see what happening this game is Nebraska at least giving the Michigan running game a little bit of trouble, in the sense of like maybe they're not going to get 6 yards of carry or whatever. And so maybe they have to do it against the air. And Nebraska has been susceptible to opposing wide receivers, but they've been tough against running backs. And so maybe Wilson is really viable this week, but he's not a guy in cash you want to have exposure to. But in GPPs, I think he's a guy that could get some points. We've seen him do it. But yeah, that's all I got on this game. Nothing on the I'm with you, man. Nothing on the Nebraska side. What are we doing?
I'm not sure if the spread had changed in this next game or not. Last I saw it was a pick'em game. Not sure if that's changed. It's Illinois and Purdue. I had a pick'em. Not sure if that's updated since I saw it.
Yeah.
We're talking about Illinois and Purdue, 52.5 total, and like I said, it's a pick'em game. It's our first pick'em game this year. Pretty good game, actually, overall. We got Altmaier, Williams at receiver, nice little hookup. We got Card, is pretty popular. Not using the Illinois running backs. It's Altmaier, Williams, and Card for me. Not sure the receivers for Purdue. I guess I'd probably lean Haseen because he's good his price. And Purdue's defense is not very good, so Altmaier and Williams would be my preference. And you don't have to have a comeback. You wouldn't have to force a comeback with Purdue. I'm fine just running Altmaier and Williams naked, so to speak, just a single stack in this.
Yeah, I do. Man, if Tyrone Tracy can get the volume at running back for Purdue, he's at 5,600. And he's a guy that I like. I mean, he's talented. And he is not going to be very highly owned. And this is a defense that's given up, 28.5 points to opposing running backs. So, he's a guy, Tracy, again, differentiate yourself a little bit. He's a guy that I could consider. Card at 6,600 is just I would run him naked because I don't trust the wide receivers, but you know, all he needs is a rushing touchdown or two to hit value because he's going to get 250 yards and a touchdown through the air. So he's intriguing. On the other side, yeah, Altmaier. And honestly, like, man, like Isaiah Williams has a really high projected ownership. About a third of the slate is going to have Isaiah Williams, according to projections that I've seen. That's just too high for a guy that I don't see like popping off. I think his ceiling is kind of limited. And I would rather just run Altmaier naked than have to throw in Isaiah Williams with them. But Altmaier is my cheap quarterback play this week. I mean, he's got 2 weeks of 70 yards, about 70 yards rushing. So I don't think you have to throw somebody in there, a wide receiver with him necessarily. I think you can run him naked. And yeah, he's my favorite at 5.7K. I'm gonna have lots of exposure to Altmaier in order to get up to Caleb Williams.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to the last game of the slate. It's a 12 game slate this week instead of 14. And it should be a fun one. Got a nice total, tight spread. The best for last, so to speak, especially with the ownership on these guys. We're talking about Boise State and Memphis. Got a 59.5 total, and Memphis favored by 3.5. We got two massively owned running backs in Genty and Blake Watson on both sides. Green and Hennigan are also massively owned. Kind of curious if people are going to be running Green and Genty together and Hennigan and Blake Watson together. I'm kind of curious. I'm okay with it. It's a 60-point spread. They both catch enough passes to make that happen. I don't have that much on the receivers. This is about the quarterbacks and the running backs. But, man, the ownership is just insane. I'm back and forth if I want to use both of them in the same lineup for a single entry. Usually I don't do that. But with this game total and with their pass-catching prowess, I'm probably going to lean towards being okay to play them for like a single entry type lineup. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Genty and Blake Watson are bad, but Genty's so good. He's so good. But anyway, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, no, I mean, not much to say about Genty. He is the highest owned player on the slate. And this matchup is pretty juicy, right? I mean, they're ranked 111th in running back points per game given up. I mean, Memphis is, and so this guy is absolutely viable here. And then I do think you could run Green and McAllister together. McAllister's getting a ton of targets. If you wanted to have a stack with Green, obviously you can run Green naked. On the other side, I like Rock Taylor quite a bit. I mean, we've seen we've seen wide receivers just crush this Boise State defense so far. Whether it's, Washington's understandable the first week. Jalen McMillan going off on you, that makes sense. But when you have San Diego State wide receivers hitting 20 plus on you, like something is wrong. And I think that's kind of where we're at with Boise State. And Rock Taylor, he's the clear wide receiver one. And he's only 6.1K. He's only averaging 14.5 points per game, but you do have a defense in Boise State that's giving up about 50% more fantasy points to opposing wide receivers than what their season average is. So it's pretty easy to see Rock Taylor, even though he's averaging 14, to get up to about 20, and he would hit value there. So, yeah, I like Rock Taylor this week. I think he is a little bit different than what most people are going to have. And so, I wrote him up in the article this week. So I like him. And Blake Watson, obviously, is a guy that we should have exposure to. But I am going to fade Blake more than I am Genty. Like, I'm going to have Genty in every lineup. And Watson's who I'm going to come off of to a LaQuint Allen, or to go up to a Jaden Ott, right? Or to go to a Jonathan Brooks. Like, Watson's the one that I'm coming off of more than Genty. just because the disparity between their actual production is pretty high. So yeah, that's all I got though. I mean, I think this is it's an interesting slate, right? Like I think with all the bye weeks, there's so much, there's just not a lot of great matchups, to be honest. So you're narrowing down to, I think, 20 to 30 players that you're going to be looking at this week to put into your lineup. And really there's 4 or 5, the Genties of the world, right? The Caleb Williams. Try to get Rice or Branch in your lineup if you can. Jalen Lucas, Jatavian Sanders, those to me are guys that you need in order to get those mid-priced wide receivers. So I don't know. It feels like the slate kind of comes down to some, which USC wide receiver hits in this Colorado game, or which Colorado wide receiver comes back on the other side and scores for them. So, because those are lower owned guys that are going to have potentially boom games here. That's my take on it, at least.
Yeah, the first and the like you said, the Colorado game, and then the BSU game, last game in the slate. So it's like, All right. Anyways, are there any questions in the chat? Got done a couple minutes early today.
I don't think
2 less games.
Yeah, I don't think any questions. I mean, usually we got like a cheap stack question from our boy Tom Cetopia would ask that a lot last year. I think it's harder to find on this slate. I mean, I guess the closest thing would be an Altmaier, Isaiah Williams stack potentially, if you consider Isaiah Williams. He's not lower owned, but he is only 5.7. But yeah, it's gonna be hard to find. There's not a lot of.
Right.
I didn't put a lot of 4.5K guys in the article because there's just not a lot this week that are priced down in that range. So it's gonna be tougher to find those cheap stacks.
Is there anybody in the is there anybody in the 3K range this week that you like at all? Any position?
Not
Nobody.
really.
Okay. Not right.
Honest.
Not until somebody's ruled out tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. I mean, there's some guys. Yeah, and those are the type of guys, right? Like the true freshmen, the Tyler Browns of the world that we kind of got to hit them when they come. And there's not a lot out there right now to pivot to, but yeah.
Okay.
So, but
right, well, I'm on a bye week. Yeah, I'm on a bye week next week, guys. So I will be gone. I'll be up in the mountains in Tennessee. So Josh is gonna have a replacement. I'll be up there. Hopefully, I have signal so I can actually tune into the show. I'm not sure who the replacement will be next week, but yeah, I'll be away next week. So good luck to everybody. I'll be around in the chat tomorrow morning. And I'm doing the Cashing Point show for NFL here at 7:00, and get ready for that. Get all my notes ready for that. So good luck to everybody Saturday, and I'm signing off for now.
Well, hey, real quick, Darren. Hey, have fun on your vacation. We'll have Matt Wispay, the guy who's been writing our DFS write-ups during the midweek games. He'll be coming on next week. So we will miss you. Hopefully we will have as much fun as I have with you.
Nice.
Matt knows his stuff. He's a great guy. So it'll be fun. But yeah, man. Hey, for those that are on here, join us in the Discord. You're going to have injury information. There will be injuries and surprises. And so we'll need to know who to pivot to pretty quickly. So join us in that Discord. Check out the prop show that we did yesterday. Had another 15 props or so on there. Been hitting at about an 80% clip on that, which has been really fun. And then we got plenty of articles, DFS articles, and all of that. So join us on there. So thank you guys for joining us today as we broke down the Saturday main slate. And y'all have fun this weekend, and let's make some money together. Peace.